Sorry for that. This meeting is about getting a briefing by Mr. Alf Lis, DA, on the Public Finance Management Bill B41 2018, and Mr. Cachalia on the Public Finance Management Bill B13 2020. The meeting is officially open. You are all welcome. Welcome, honorable members, the support team from finance, PBO, if they're here in the platform, other parliamentary officials. Welcome the media, the public, and other stakeholders who are in the platform. So let me right away go to, the meeting is officially open. Welcome. Are there apologies?
No, Chair, no apologies received.
Okay, no apologies received. Then we'll move to item 2, briefing by Mr. Lis, DA, on the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill B4 2018, and Mr. Cachalia on the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill B13 2020. Over to you, Mr. Lis.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, one and all. Nice to be back in my old committee. Mr. Chairman, thank you for putting this bill on the agenda of your committee. It has been a long time in the process. Interesting, I just noticed just now looking at the bill that it was first gazetted on the 25th of October 2018. And 25th of October happens to be my birthday. So I hope as a birthday gift, the committee will support my private member's bill. Mr. Chairman, the bill is a very simple bill and not extensive at all. It really is very short, but it has an important role to play in ensuring the proper oversight of the fiscus. And so whilst it may be short, I believe it is an important tool to assist Parliament to ensure that the kind of state capture which happened and has now been so widely published through the Zondo Commission may in some way be prevented by the adoption of this bill. Mr. Chairman, the South African sovereign debt levels are increasing at an alarming pace, and we all know that, and will reach 5.3 trillion and 72.9% of GDP in the 24-25 year. But added to this are the contingent liabilities, the extent of which is largely unknown. These contingent liabilities include liabilities for all spheres of government, such as current creditors, payments due to suppliers but not paid, example, municipal debt to Eskom, employee leave pay, capital projects where contractors' claims for work done are due or even way overdue, and government guarantees issued and utilized amongst the many SOEs and departments. Government guarantees constitute a significant part of the contingent liabilities and are issued after approval by the Minister of Finance. The extent of these government guarantees is only made known either by way of a parliamentary question or annually in the main budget documentation. The data about government guarantees is declared in a very limited way in the medium-term budget statement. This lack of transparency is clearly a high risk and needs to have some sort of parliamentary oversight. The latest data that we have is contained in the 2022 budget review reflects that government guarantees of 768.6 billion had been issued at that point, and of that, 593.8 billion of the guarantees issued had been utilized by the recipients of the guarantees. In terms of the current legislation, there is no provision for Parliament to be in any way involved in the process of issuing government guarantees. The relevant minister makes a request to the Minister of Finance, and the Minister of Finance then agrees or disagrees, and the guarantee may then be issued by the requesting department. An example of the complete absence of a role for Parliament was the government guarantee extended of 3.43 billion and issued to Denel, a bankrupt state-owned company, in September 2018. In terms of the information received for the 31st of March 2018, a further 1 billion guarantee to bring the total to 4.43 billion was under consideration. And we know, Mr. Chairman, where Denel stands today. We believe that there must be some form of oversight given to Parliament in the process of the Minister of Finance either agreeing or disagreeing with the issuing of government guarantees. Mr. Chairman, this view is one shared by Mr. Nene, the past Minister of Finance, who, in testimony to the Zondo Commission into state capture, stated that, and I quote, "The way that guarantees work cuts out parliamentary scrutiny." So that was the view of Mr. Nene, a previous finance minister, who during his term worked very hard to stop and prevent the state capture. The DA believes that there must be complete transparency of the issuing of government guarantees and that Parliament must be given the opportunity to, at very least, be aware of the mounting risks, and if it wishes to act, to put brakes on the issuing of government guarantees. And it's for this reason that we have tabled the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill, and it is hereby proposed that Section 70 of the Act be amended in order to require the Minister of Finance to table a report in Parliament which sets out his or her decision to issue such a guarantee, security, or indemnity no less than 30 days after such guarantee, security, indemnity has been issued in terms of the Act. The bill will require that this report include the name of the national public entity concerned, the date on which such guarantee, indemnity, or security was made, the terms and conditions attached to the issuing of the guarantee, indemnity, or security, and the minister's reason for his or her concurrence in this matter. The bill will also seek to require the minister to table a report in instances where he rejects a cabinet member's request for the issuance of a guarantee, indemnity, or security in terms of the Act. This report will also need to contain the particulars of such a rejection. Mr. Chairman, this bill can only be considered as a positive move, and we beg for the committee to support this bill in its report to the National Assembly. Mr. Chairman, that covers the motivation and the broad aspects of the bill. As you see, when you look at the bill, it's essentially simply one paragraph being inserted into Section 70 of the Public Finance Management Act. And it's very, very simple. And there's very little of any contentious nature of this bill. So, Mr. Chairman, I thank you very much for the opportunity to present it to you.
Okay, Thanks very much, Honorable Liz, for your presentation on the bill. Do we want to take the bills simultaneously, or we want to first take the one of Mr. Liz, then get to the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill? Alan, do they two go together, or we have to take one at a time?
It's two separate bills, Chair. But obviously, with your permission, I'm not sure if Mr. Cachalia should brief the committee and then questions after. That's up to you, Chair.
Okay. Let's first take the bill as presented by Mr. Liz, the Public Finance Amendment Management and Amendment Bill. Over to you, members. Dr. George.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to Honourable Lees for his private member's bill. Honourable Lees, I do think that you've identified a significant gap in the legislation that enabled state capture and permitted billions of rands of hard-earned taxpayer money to get stolen at the expense of the most vulnerable members of our society. Your bill would promote transparency that is needed, and that strengthens parliamentary oversight. You mentioned that the minister would need to table a report within 30 days of the guarantees that he has approved and also of those that he did not approve. And I think that that's a significant step in the right direction. Have you considered a provision where Parliament would be able to reject a guarantee given, considering the amount of money that is being squandered through that mechanism? Thanks very much, Chair.
Thanks very much, Dr. George. Any other question? Honorable Soropen.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, just to Honourable Lees, I think that the bill is very timely considering what was revealed at the Zondo Commission. But more importantly, that what we see with the government guarantees are they become contingent liabilities that actually in effect push debt to GDP far higher than what it actually is, should some of those be recalled. I'd like to ask Dr. Lees if he has considered also including a provision into the bill that requires the finance minister to do this, to not just report to Parliament on what they have approved and denied, but also to be forced to present reasons as to why guarantees have been approved in the midst of the financial year. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Sarupen. For now, let me request Mr. Liz to respond to those two questions.
Thank you very much to you, Mr. Chairman, and to the two questions. A particular thanks to Honourable Sarapan. I know that I'm probably somewhat older than him, and so it's time now to get honorary degrees. So I really appreciate the PhD he's just conferred on me, and so thank you very much for that. But I'm not sure that I will start using it on my letterhead. Mr. Chairman, I'm sure he'll appreciate our sense of humor. In terms of the ability for Parliament to reject a guarantee, we did consider that at the time, and the thoughts were that these guarantees what we didn't want to do was to put in place huge stumbling blocks when there was a real need for a guarantee, in ensuring that an entity like Eskom was able to operate swiftly and efficiently. And we've seen in recent days the difficulties that, and I'm talking now particularly of Eskom, in getting approval and enabling it to be light-footed in terms of getting the lights back on for that matter. And we know that we're now facing huge blackouts. So it's not something that we simply didn't think of, but it was something we thought perhaps we should try and see what sort of oversight would come out of a rapid reporting structure, and whether that would be sufficient. What it does do is it would enable Parliament, once the reports come in, to consider whether or not any further such guarantees could be justified, and resolve that they should not be issued by the Minister of Finance. But it's not explicit in my bill, and the point is taken. And so that moves on to Honourable Sarapin's question about the reasons. The reasons, I'm just trying to look at my wording in the bill now, but my understanding is it does include a requirement for the reasons to be given. And name of portfolio, quest value. This goes back some time. Mr. Chairman, perhaps that I need to read it more carefully. But yeah, I think reasons are an important thing, and it might be, if they're not in the bill already, it might be an amendment that the committee would like to make, or I can make. I'm not sure what the process is. Perhaps Frank Jenkins. Nice to see you, Frank. I see you're still spending a lot of time with this committee, are you? Could give us some advice on that. So, Mr. Chairman, I hope that answers the questions. And I'm going to look more carefully. Mr. Chairman, actually, the reasons for the decision are included under A5. So it is there. So yeah, I think I've answered those two questions. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Honourable Liz. Are there more questions? Honourable Mrolong.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you very much,
Honourable
Chairperson.
Mrolong, then Honourable Mabiletsa.
I have concerns that we must never run the risk of making Parliament operational. Parliament deals with budget, deals with special appropriation bills, and therefore we shouldn't venture into Parliament becoming too administrative in terms of its own functions. For instance, should a minister be required on an urgent basis to issue bank guarantees on the basis of emergencies that may have arisen in a particular entity of government? What becomes of his action should Parliament later feel that such an approval was inappropriate? Does it mean that the minister then will have to reverse his decision to grant such guarantees? Thank you very much.
Where do I go? Yeah, thanks, Honorable Mrolo. Honorable Mapilet.
Thank you, Chair. I just listened to the honorable member when he tabled the bill here. It is not clear. I really do not understand exactly where is he taking it to or from, because the reasons are not even clearly articulated. And so I don't think it's up to us to sit here and start giving the reasons. If he comes here with a bill, he must just come here with the reasons that are clearly articulated. And I mean, as Murolong has said, I think let us leave this to the administrators, and they will do their job. So I don't think we must take the bill today. I'm done, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Mapilet. Honorable Abraham.
Yes, Chair, thank you so much. Chair, I've been raising my hand since you were checking whether we should be discussing the honorable member's bill together with the presentation by Mr. Cachalia. And I think in terms of the agenda, that is what we were supposed to do. But unfortunately, we are here now. And I think the question that we need to ask, because the bill refers to the minister, and I think also it touches other areas outside of the finance minister. So my take would be specifics in terms of which ministries is the bill addressing here. And maybe, Chair, without further ado, we need to bring Mr. Cachalia in so that we can discuss both these bills at the same time, because much as it is two separate bills, it is the same bill. It's two separate amendments of the same bill. Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Abraham. I see. Okay, can those questions be attended to? Back to you, Honorable Liz.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the questions asked. Honorable Mararong, the point is well made. And in fact, that's what I had intimated in response to Honorable George, is the question of the authority of Parliament to reject a guarantee. It's not contained here. It is simply an oversight reporting function, and Parliament should not get involved in the operational issues. We agree, but the budgets, beg your pardon, the government guarantees are not tabled in the annual budget and approved by Parliament in advance. So there's no parliamentary approval process for government guarantees as we stand at present. So what this does is simply to make the issuing of these government guarantees transparent and available to Parliament in as close as, damn it, a real-time basis. In other words, within 30 days, rather than a long way down the road. And so that Parliament can then look at these and do oversight of the application of those guarantees. There is no provision in this bill to obtain parliamentary approval prior to the issuing of the guarantees, the government guarantees, nor is there provision for Parliament to be able to withdraw the guarantees already issued, unless, of course, they haven't been utilized. And we know that there are, in the case, for instance, of SAA right now, some 17 billion rands worth of government guarantees issued to SAA, and some 2.7 billion of that 17 are currently used, and the rest are not used. So under those circumstances, the Minister of Finance should, and in fact should in this case, withdraw those guarantees. And Parliament should be able to make an input into that, to say that they should be withdrawn. Right now, they sit there, and SAA could use them if they so choose. So that I think takes care of Honourable Modalong. Honourable Mabiletsa, I'm disappointed that you take the view that you have taken, because I don't believe that this is a partisan bill at all. And to reject it out of hand is rather unfortunate, but I appeal to you to consider it very carefully. It's very simple. There's nothing complicated about it. And I believe it's been presented in an open and transparent way. Honourable Abraham, this bill does not deal with any other ministries, departments, or ministers. It only deals with the Minister of Finance reporting on something which is already contained in the PFMA. It has no impact at all on any other ministries. And Mr. Chairman, I think that what I did omit was the view that the proposed bill should be dealt with as a Section 76 bill. And perhaps Frank can give us some advice about that. So, Mr. Chairman, it is very simple. It doesn't have an impact on other ministers or ministries or departments. It has significant implications to ensure that the possibility of continued state capture that has been so exposed in the Zander Commission may be reduced and assist with its elimination. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Honourable Liz, for your comments. Are there more comments? It seems none. Advocate Jenkins, can you clarify in terms of the process from here?
Chairperson, good morning. Good morning, honourable members. The process from here, Chair, there is, as far as I know, the bill must be published for public comment. And of course, the National Treasury, the rules set out that the government department that's affected by this bill needs to make a comment on it. After that, Chair, I think there's a motion of desirability, and then there's a report. If that is the end of the matter, like a lot of private members' bills, if that is the end of the matter, then there will be a report to the House, and if to say that the bill is accepted or not accepted. And if it's accepted, of course, the committee will go clause by clause through it, and then report a bill to the House. So that's the process, I understand it, Chairperson. So I think that's we leave it at that, Chair. The tagging, Mr. Lees asked about the tagging. I just read through it very quickly now. I wouldn't want to just guess, but usually a bill like that, especially an amendment bill, if it doesn't deal with finances of the provinces, will be 75. If it does affect the norms and standards that provinces must deal with, and then that will be 76. And if we go back to the history of the Public Finance Management Act, it was done in two parts. The first part was a 75 bill, and then after that there was an amendment to deal with provincial issues, which became a 76 bill, if I remember correctly, but it's usually a 75. But one will look at it in more detail if the bill is formally tagged by the joint tagging mechanism. In fact, Chair, I think it should have been, I will follow up with my colleagues that deal with private members' bills and drafting and see if it hasn't been tagged already. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Advocate Jenkins. I see Cachalia raising a hand here. Another time.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to Chair and to members. Just to assist in terms of tagging, and with regards to what Frank said, the bill is tagged as a Section 76 bill, as it deals with matters that are envisaged in Chapter 13 of the Constitution. That is how the bill is tagged currently. Thank you, Chair. I'm done, Chair. Thank you.
Sorry, members, there was a call that was coming and it tampered with my connectivity. So, Advocate Jenkins and Lutano, you are suggesting that in terms of the process, we move to the next step where we're going to discuss the desirability of the bill. Is it that so?
Chair, I've just checked now with my colleague, and maybe she wants to address the committee on that. Ms. Mkasha. Chair, as I understand, this bill must still go through, at least be advertised for public input. Whether it's now necessary to have a public hearing thereafter would come from that exercise, but it is a parliamentary process, which in terms of the Constitution requires that there is a facilitation of public involvement before we get to the stage of desirability, Chair. But I'm going to ask Nola Tandu, who's the expert on private members' bill, just to contradict me, please, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Chair, there is a process in terms of the rules before we get to the motion of desirability. And that process involves public hearings, and as Frankie stated before, also input from National Treasury. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. I think let's follow that procedure. We get the bill published for public comments. Then later we'll discuss the motion of desirability. I hope we are together in terms of that process. Thanks very much, Honorable Liz. You will be kept abreast of the process so that you participate actively as you initiated the private members' bill.
You mean
Ubonga mina, Mongameli. Let's move to the other one of my gadgets are failing me here today. Mr. Cachalia, on the Public Finance Manager Amendment Bill B13 2020. Honorable Cachalia, are you there?
I am, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Chair, this is a non-controversial, non-partisan bill that is predicated on the need for financial performance management to be a prerequisite for organizational performance, in that it determines to a large extent government's capacity to implement policy and manage public resources through its own institutions and systems. And it provides the foundations onto which to build effective, capable, and accountable measures able to and enables people to fulfill their responsibilities and deliver basic services. Now, the PFMA attempts to do this and address this and give meaning to it in terms of the non-provision on occasion of audited annual financial statements. And it does this in terms of Section 65 of the PFMA Act of 1999, which provides that the executive authority responsible for a department or public entity must table annual reports, financial statements, and the audit report to the National Assembly, and that such statements must be tabled within 1 month after the accounting officer for the department or the accounting authority for the public entity has received the audit report. Now, if in the current scenario, if the executive authority fails to table these reports within 6 months after the end of the financial year, the executive authority must then table a written explanation to the legislature as to the reasons why this has not happened. But that's where it ends. The Act does not, as it stands, provide for additional measures in instances where such reports and statements are not tabled, and the department or public entity is not required to table such reports. Now, this, flies in the face of transparency, and flies in the face of governance, and flies in the face of oversight. And to remedy this, the draft bill therefore seeks to provide for additional measures in instances where the executive authority has failed to table and financial statements in the National Assembly or the relevant legislature. So the bill then proposes that the annual report, financial statements, and the audit report on such statements referred to 65 within 60 days after a written explanation has been tabled. So it requires it to be tabled categorically thereafter. Now, this is in line with International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS, that are issued by the Board of Accounting Standards, the IASB, with the objective of providing common accounting language and so on. And it is entirely in line with that. And the often when questioned as to why these statements are not forthcoming, the reason is given that these entities are perhaps not a going concern. Now, the IFRS standards require that when an entity does not prepare statements on a going concern basis, it shall disclose that fact together with the basis on which it was prepared. It prepared the financial statements and the reason why the entity is not regarded as a going concern. And the entity is required to disclose the fact that the financial statements have not been prepared in that particular way, as well as how it is now being prepared and presented. So that cannot be an excuse or a reason for non-presentation. So, it's binary whether or not to prepare a financial statement as a going concern. It's a binary decision. but the circumstances in which the entities prepare financial statements on a going concern basis will differ widely. I think this bill, this amendment bill, short and sweet as I think it is, will address this and ensure that we have this information both timeously and properly presented before us in Parliament. And if it is not, then Parliament may decide in its wisdom what it intends to do. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much, Honorable Cachalia. Members, there you are. Your comments. Yeah, Honorable Mrolo.
Well, thank you very much. You know that parliamentary procedure on legislation, executive and private bills, you know, must you know, give an indication that there has been an attempt to solicit public views. So I'm going to suggest that we agree that well, notwithstanding the fact that there may be members who may want to ask specific questions, but that in principle we agree that this process will be subjected to requisite public participation processes. And when they're done, perhaps we will also have a much dimmer view on these issues that would have arisen as a result of public comments, written or otherwise. So I'm going to suggest that, and I'm not saying that we should directly move into that understanding. I'm sure there are members who have different views and we want to ask questions, but in principle we accept that there must be some process. I mean, but there must be a public participation process. When that has ensued, we will also still have an opportunity to express ourselves quite explicitly on this bill. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Honorable Morolong. Let's move to Honorable Dr. George.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Honorable Cachalia, for your private members bill. I think in terms of process, it sounds as if we're going to be having a public participation process, which will enrich deliberations, etc. So there's obviously still a couple of processes to go. However, I do want to ask a question. You have identified a very significant problem that we have. I mean, it's very widespread. We have the late submission or the non-submission of annual financial statements. And we find usually the case is that there is something very seriously wrong and gross mismanagement of the public finances. So your proposal would certainly take Parliament further along in its journey to try to get the public finances to be better managed with better transparency and stronger oversight. Have you considered whether any sanctions should be built into the bill, given that the problem is so widespread? You mentioned that there would have to be an explanation, it would need to be tabled, it would obviously therefore open up a lot of questions and then ensure greater transparency, which is what we all would like to achieve. But I'd like to know whether you would want to specifically sanction, given that we know that so much has been stolen from the public finances for such a long time, and that absolutely nobody gets held to account. And that is the biggest problem, because the problem just carries on going. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Dr. George. Honorable Sarupen.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, I think Honorable Cachalia's private members bill also arises out of the consequences of the state capture era, where lacuna in legislation around the tabling of the financial statements of state-owned companies led to all sorts of shenanigans, problems, endless bailouts that have become black holes that the public are really tired of. And I think that this is most welcome. I'd like to ask Mr. Cachalia specifically, companies of the size that are state-owned enterprises, if they were listed in the JSE and failed to table their financial statements, they'd be delisted, and the JSE by law would be required to report their directors as delinquent directors. Does he believe that the Department of Public Enterprises should, as a consequence of this as well, be forced to declare directors appointed to state-owned enterprises who fail to disclose the financial status of state-owned enterprises, that they should by law be declared delinquent directors by the DPE, and to rather not give DPE a choice in this matter to ensure that we have good governance at our SOEs? Thanks very much.
Thanks, Honorable Sarupen. Honorable Gijiman Skosan. Mhlonishwa.
Ngiyathokoza Sihlalo, and greetings to all honorable members, our officials, and all other stakeholders present in the meeting. I want to thank Honorable Cachalia for his proposed private members bill as presented. But I want to second the Honorable Mrolo that let us note this presentation by Honorable Cachalia, and as per the procedures of Parliament, allow public comments, and then after that, then we will then come back and look at both this presentation of Honorable Cachalia, and also look at the public comments that shall have been forwarded to us. I think then at that stage we will be able to take the appropriate decision as to whether is it desirable for us to effect this amendment, and then subsequent to that recommend accordingly to the National Assembly as to what is our view as a committee moving forward. So at this stage, I think it's proper that we subject this bill to public comments, and then after that we will then come back. I think the public comments will be able also to guide us, because I think people will be raising different arguments on it. So looking at those comments and looking at the proposed amendment itself from Mr. Cachalia, we will be able to take the appropriate decision. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Skosana. Any take, Honorable Cachalia, before we move to the next item?
Thank you, Chair. The comments from Honorable Morolo and Honorable Skosana are similar, if not identical, and that procedure will continue as it will. With regard to the questions from Dr. George and Honorable Sarupen, both those questions are linked as well, and they refer to whether I've considered sanctions for non-disclosure within the period. Now, I was advised reliably that the sanctions sit at the discretion of the House, and that we are not this is not doesn't empower us to police in particular by way of sanctions, but it does require certain things to be done. When those things are not done, the House will determine the sanctions. Now, with regard to the comparison with the SOE, with the companies of the size in private listing, and the procedures that are followed there, and the sanctions for non-disclosure timeously after warnings for disclosure of public accounts. Again, it is a gray area as to how company law affects state-owned companies, and that goes back to how they were set up by what, in what way they were set up and by whom they were set up, which determines where the sanctions lie. And that dotted line takes us back again to Parliament, to the National Assembly. And it was, the advice I received is that that's where it should remain. I hope that attempts to clarify in some way the questions.
Thanks, Honorable Cachalia. I hope Frank and Nolitando, the bill will go the same way like the one that has been initiated by Honorable Liz.
That is correct, Chair.
Okay, so we'll take the bill to the next step. Alan, the next one, I think we're done with item 3. We're moving to closure.
Yes, Chair. Sorry, if I can just come in on the redrafted program that I sent you. I've got tentative date for public participation on the 7th of June. So with your and the committee's permission, I can then start the process of procuring space in national newspapers for this to go in, and or for the advert to go in. I'll include both bills on the advert with hearings date on the 7th of June, Chair.
Okay, let's continue to do so and organize for public hearings, both the written and oral submissions. Thanks very much, honorable members, in particular, Honorable Liz and Honorable Cachalia, for having availed yourself to come and prevent these 2 private members' bill. Private members' bill are treated like any other bill that is before cabinet. I mean, parliament. So we are going to do exactly the same and make sure that all the procedures are followed in terms of processing these bills until they reach finality. Any announcement, Alan?
No, just the meeting tomorrow, 9 o'clock, Chair. It's committee deliberating and clause-by-clause deliberations on the 2 bills that were presented to the committee last week.
Okay, that's it. Thanks very much, honorable members. The meeting is adjourned. We'll meet tomorrow.
Recording stopped.